Sleep deprivation degrades all aspects of human performance, both physical and mental. And we know that certain populations, such as military and first responders, are more susceptible to sleep deprivation than other occupations. I'm Dr. Dan Pronk. I was formerly a doctor with Australian Army Special Operations, and I currently work as a doctor in a busy regional emergency department. I've seen and felt firsthand the effects of the sleep deprivation associated with military roles and also emergency response roles, and the sometimes catastrophic effects that can have in these high consequence, high stress environments. When it comes to a good night's sleep, we're looking at two factors. We're looking at the duration of a good night's sleep, but we're also looking at the quality of the sleep, the different sleep cycles that you oscillate through during a period of sleep that serve specific purposes to regenerate both our body and our mind. Our body is plumbed to run on what's known as a circadian rhythm, a day-night cycle that's governed by a couple of key hormones that are triggered by bright light and low light conditions. It's important to understand these hormones and how they work and how we can work with them to help us get an optimal night's sleep or an optimal period of sleep when we're working shift work, sometimes late shift, sometimes night shift, where we're trying to be awake and alert at a period of time when our body is wanting to be asleep. A key hormone to understand if we want to master the art of sleeping well and getting good length and quality of sleep is the hormone melatonin. Now, melatonin's released from our brain under low light conditions, which would typically happen on a normal day-night circadian rhythm. When the sun starts to set, the light fades and it triggers our brain to release melatonin. Now, of course, if we're working late shifts, night shifts, and trying to sleep during the day, this tricks our system into wanting to suppress melatonin release. Likewise, if we're trying to settle at night and we are staring at screens, our tablets, our phones, pumping bright blue light into our eyes, this can also suppress melatonin release and have an impact on our ability to get to sleep and get into the deep stages of sleep. Another chemical that's fundamental to us feeling sleepy, getting to sleep and accessing deep stages of sleep is adenosine. Now, adenosine builds up in our body during periods of being awake. The significance of adenosine when it comes to getting a good night's sleep is it's the very receptors that adenosine works on that caffeine also works on. So most will be familiar with the use of a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, an energy drink, a Red Bull when they're trying to pep themselves up or maybe stay awake on a night shift when you're starting to feel tired. That caffeine gets into the brain, it bumps adenosine off the receptors that it's on, and it stops us feeling the tiredness associated with that adenosine. Now, that can be of great effect at the start of a shift, the start of a night shift, but we need to be very careful about how much caffeine we're using and how long we're using it for during a period of being awake, because too much caffeine in the system can stop that adenosine having its effect and stop us getting sleepy and getting to sleep when it's time to sleep. Other factors that contribute to us getting a good restful period of sleep are things like our body's temperature and also the temperature and humidity of the room that we're trying to sleep in. There's some very specific temperature ranges that our body wants to be within to optimize sleep. Generally, a cooler room and a less humid room and a slightly lower body temperature are conducive with a good night's sleep. Likewise, low light conditions are crucial for a good night's sleep, and so once again, if you've been working night shift, you're trying to sleep during the day, it's essential to try and black that room out as best you can using blackout blinds, covering up every natural source of light or artificial source of light that might impact with that ability to darken the room, to help that melatonin release and to help you get to sleep and access those deep stages of sleep. By paying careful attention to the scheduling of things like exercise and your food and fluid intake as it relates to when you are trying to settle and get to sleep, you can significantly improve your chances of getting a good period of rest. Things like avoiding foods that are too fatty or too high in sugar too close to trying to get to sleep. Things like avoiding high intensity exercise in the period of time just in the hours before sleep, all can help with that ability to settle, get to sleep, and access those deeper stages of sleep. Likewise, there's things we can be doing to manipulate our body core temperature in the hours before we rest. There's some good studies to suggest that if you slightly raise your body's core temperature a couple of hours before you want to try and get to sleep, through the use of a hot shower or maybe a hot bath or sauna if you have access to one, and then in that couple of hours before you want to get to sleep, your body's core temperature starts to return to a normal level. That dropping of the core temperature just ever so slightly from a degree or so above its normal range can help you feel sleepy, get to sleep, and access those deep stages of sleep. Alcohol is a true double-edged sword when it comes to sleep. On the one hand, it can help us settle a racing mind and it can help us get to sleep, but it ultimately has a negative effect on our sleep. The reason for this is that alcohol only lasts for about 3 to 5 hours in our system. So while it can help us quieten our mind and get to sleep, 3 to 5 hours later, when it starts to wear off, our mind can become alert and active. Now, at a minimum, this can stop us from getting into the deep restorative stages of sleep, but the worst case is it leaves us awake at 2 or 3 a.m. with a racing mind, and instead of that period of sleep where we should be getting deep and the rapid eye movement sleep, these key stages of sleep that restore our body and mind, we're instead awake and our mind is active. Over my years serving with Army Special Operations and ongoing into my current role, I appreciate the challenges of trying to get good quality sleep in military and first response roles. I know many of you will face these same challenges. The difficulty getting to sleep, the tendency to use and potentially abuse alcohol to help you get some rest and quiet a racing mind, the use and potentially abuse of caffeine to stimulate you and keep you alert and keep you in the mind space you need to be in these high consequence roles. They all are factors of military and first response roles, but we can do better. If you know how to access these deep stages of sleep, if you know how to use these things like the caffeine, the exercise, the blue light, the natural light in your favor and not working against you, you can really turn the tables on some of these sleep disorders and the sleep deprivation that's all too common in military and first response roles, and that we know from the data contributes to things like increased workplace accidents, increased inappropriate use of force, decreased performance in situations such as resuscitation situations for the healthcare providers, and the list goes on. Here at Aussie Frontline, we're all about military and first responder well-being, and in line with that, we've put together an Optimising Sleep for Military and First Responders online course. In this course, we take a deep dive into exactly what a good night's sleep looks like in terms of duration, in terms of quality. We look at factors like caffeine, like blue light exposure, like exercise, diet, food, fluid intake, things like alcohol, all of these factors and how they contribute to your sleep, how you can use some of them to optimize your performance in the workplace and others to optimize your period of rest in between your shifts at work, be that during the day or during the night, so that you turn up to work the best and the safest version of yourself for these high stress and high consequence roles. So if you're a military member or a first responder who's looking to optimize their sleep, get across to the Aussie Frontline website or click the link below to learn more.